It's Mackenzie Elliott here, 32 years old, and I'm about to share a story I never thought I'd tell on camera. I'm a woman who prided herself on a perfect credit score, financial independence, and a career built from scratch. But 3 days before my 32nd birthday, my world flipped upside down when I discovered my credit card was maxed out and $25,000 was gone, stolen by the last people I ever expected, my own parents. When I confronted them, my dad snapped, "The family needed it more," and my mom laughed, "You can celebrate alone, we had better plans." Their smug faces changed when I looked them in the eye and said, "Then don't ever call me again." They had no idea what I was about to do next. Before I dive into this wild, heartbreaking, and ultimately empowering journey, drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from. If you've ever had family members who felt entitled to your money or crossed your boundaries, hit that like button and subscribe for more real talk about protecting your peace. Trust me, what happens next will show you why setting boundaries with toxic family is the greatest gift you can give yourself. If you're new here, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me keep sharing stories like this and building a community where we can talk about the hard stuff. Let me take you back to where it all started, my childhood in suburban Massachusetts. Growing up, our house was a financial roller coaster, and not the fun kind. My parents, Diana and Frank Elliott, were what polite financial advisors might call poor money managers. But let's be real, they were reckless spenders who lived paycheck to paycheck, blowing every dollar on things we couldn't afford. One month, Dad would come home with a brand new flat-screen TV or some shiny gadget we didn't need. The next, Mom would be sitting at the kitchen table, tears streaming down her face, surrounded by past due notices and final warnings from utility companies. I can still hear the sound of her voice cracking as she'd say, "We'll figure it out," while Dad paced the living room, muttering about how the bank doesn't understand. Power shutoffs weren't rare in our house. I was maybe 8 the first time I came home from school to find the lights off, the fridge silent, and Mom trying to act like it was no big deal. "It's just for a day or two," she'd say, lighting candles like we were having some cozy adventure. But I knew better. By the time I was 10, I dreaded going to the grocery store with them because "card declined" was a phrase I heard way too often. That sinking feeling in my stomach, the embarrassment, the confusion, became a part of me before I even understood what credit or debt meant. Money wasn't just tight, it was a source of constant tension. My parents fought about it late at night when they thought I was asleep. I'd lie in bed, hearing their voices rise through the thin walls, Dad blaming Mom for overspending, Mom accusing Dad of not working hard enough. But the next day, they'd act like nothing happened, maybe even splurge on takeout or a new pair of shoes to cheer everyone up. It was a cycle: spend, stress, fight, repeat. And somehow, I was always caught in the middle. By 13, I was done relying on them for the basics. I started working under-the-table jobs, babysitting, dog walking, cleaning houses in the neighborhood, just to buy my own school supplies. I'd hide my cash in a sock stuffed under my mattress because anything left out in the open mysteriously vanished. I learned that the hard way when $20 I'd earned raking leaves disappeared from my desk, only for Mom to claim she borrowed it for gas. She never paid it back, and when I asked about it, she'd snap, "Don't be selfish, Mackenzie. This is what families do. We help each other." That phrase, "this is what families do," became their mantra. It was their excuse for everything. When I was 16 and working more hours to save for a used car, I caught Dad taking $50 from my purse. When I confronted him, he didn't even flinch. "We needed it for groceries," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You'll understand when you're older." But I didn't understand. I just felt betrayed, like my hard work didn't matter. Still, I kept quiet, because what else could I do? They were my parents, and I was a kid. High school was when I started dreaming of escape. I saw college as my ticket out, not just from our house, but from the chaos of their financial mess. While my friends talked about their parents' college funds or family vacations, I was applying for every scholarship I could find. I stayed up late studying to keep my 4.0 GPA, worked 20 hours a week at a local cafe, and filled out financial aid forms by myself. My parents didn't help. They didn't even seem to care. When my acceptance letter to Boston University arrived with a substantial scholarship, I was over the moon. I ran to show Mom, thinking maybe she'd be proud. Her response? Well, don't expect us to help with anything. It stung, but it wasn't surprising. I'd never expected their help, I just wanted them to care. College was tough but freeing. I worked 30 hours a week, took a full course load, and lived on instant noodles to keep my expenses low. I graduated with minimal student loans, which I paid off in 5 years through obsessive budgeting and sheer determination. After college, I built a career as an event planner in Boston, starting small, weddings, birthday parties, then working my way up to corporate events. Client by client, I made a name for myself, becoming one of the city's go-to planners for high-end conferences and galas. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days creating perfect, memorable celebrations for others while my own childhood birthdays were often forgotten or cancelled because of my parents' latest financial emergency. I remember my 12th birthday vividly. I'd been so excited, I'd invited a few friends over for pizza and a movie, a rare treat. But the day before, Dad came home with a new sound system we couldn't afford, and suddenly there was no money for my party. Mom didn't even look at me when she said, "We'll do it another time." My friends showed up, and I had to tell them it was cancelled. I cried in my room that night, not just because of the party, but because I felt invisible. That wasn't the only time. My 16th birthday was skipped because they'd spent the money on a weekend getaway for themselves. My high school graduation dinner? They forgot their credit cards, leaving me to cover the bill with my cafe tips. Each time, they'd brush it off with, "You'll understand when you have a family." As my career took off in my mid-20s, I started to feel like I'd made it. I had a nice apartment, a solid savings account, and that perfect credit score I'd worked so hard for. I was proud of myself, not just for the money, but for building a life that felt stable, something I'd never had growing up. But that's when my parents' attitude toward me changed. They went from dismissing my achievements, calling my job fancy party planning with a smirk, to taking a sudden interest in my comfortable lifestyle. It started around my 27th birthday with small requests. "Can you spot us $200 for the electric bill?" Dad would ask. "We're just short this month." Or Mom would call, voice shaky, saying, "We need $1,000 for car repairs." "We'll pay you back, I swear." I helped them because I felt guilty. I'd worked so hard to pull myself out of their mess, and here they were, still struggling. I told myself it was temporary, that they'd get back on their feet. But the promises to repay never materialized. Just until payday, Dad would say, but payday came and went with no mention of the money. "We'd do the same for you," Mom would add, conveniently forgetting they'd never done anything like that for me. The requests got bigger and bolder over time, and I started to notice a pattern. They'd ask for money right after I'd post about a work milestone or a rare treat for myself, like a new pair of shoes or a weekend trip with friends. It was like they were watching, waiting for proof I had something they could take. I hit my breaking point 2 years before my 32nd birthday. I'd lent them $3,000 for what they swore was essential home repairs after a pipe burst in their basement. I trusted them even though my gut told me not to. A week later, I saw their Facebook posts from a luxury casino resort, smiling selfies by the pool, captions about living it up. I was furious. I called them, expecting an apology, but instead, they turned it on me. "You're keeping score with family?" Mom said, her voice dripping with disappointment. "We raised you better than that." Dad chimed in, "You're doing so well, Mackenzie. Why are you being selfish?" I hung up, shaking, realizing I'd been played. That was when I started therapy. My therapist, Dr. Abrams, helped me see that my parents' behavior wasn't just bad money management, it was financial abuse. She taught me about boundaries, something I'd never learned growing up. I decided to set clear rules, no more cash handouts, only help for true emergencies, and only after they'd proven it was legit. I also added my credit card to their phones for absolute emergencies, like a medical crisis or a car breakdown in a dangerous area, with explicit instructions to call me first. Dr. Abrams warned me that leaving any financial access was risky, but I couldn't bring myself to cut them off completely. I still wanted to believe they had some line they wouldn't cross, that they valued our relationship enough not to betray me again. Looking back, I was naive. But I was trying to hold on to the idea of family, the hope that my parents could change. I needed to believe that the people who raised me weren't capable of seeing me as nothing more than a resource to exploit. I was wrong. Fast forward to my 32nd birthday. For the first time in my life, I decided to really celebrate myself. I'd spent years working hard, saving carefully, and building a life I was proud of. I deserved a moment to soak it in. I planned a dream weekend in Nantucket with my closest friends, people who'd been there through the grind of building my business, who cheered my wins without expecting anything in return, who respected the boundaries I'd worked so hard to set. I'd saved specifically for this trip, budgeting for an oceanfront rental, a private chef for Saturday night, and little touches like a sunset boat tour. I was so excited to finally have a birthday that wasn't overshadowed by my parents' chaos, a memory I could hold on to as proof that I'd made it. I posted about the trip on Instagram, not to brag, but because I was genuinely happy. I shared a photo of my vision board with the Nantucket Lighthouse, captioned, "Counting down to my 32nd birthday. Saved up for this dream trip, and I can't wait to celebrate with my besties." I didn't think twice about it. I didn't realize my parents were watching, scrolling through my posts, seeing my joy as an opportunity. I had no idea they were calculating exactly how much they could take from me while I was distracted with planning. The discovery happened on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 days before my birthday. I was at my desk, finalizing reservations for Nantucket. I called the rental company to confirm the deposit, then logged into my Premium Rewards credit card, the one I'd worked so hard to qualify for, with its pristine credit limit, to check my available balance. The page loaded, and my heart stopped. Available credit, $0. Current balance, $25,000. I blinked, thinking it was a glitch. I refreshed the page. Same numbers. My hand started shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. This couldn't be right. I scrolled through the recent transactions, my stomach twisting with every line. Nordstrom, $3,246.78. Best Buy, $4,189.53. Bass Pro Shops, $2,875.22. Ticketmaster, $1,698.50. Marriott Hotels, $4,782.90. Apple Store, $3,899.99. 3 restaurant charges totaling over $1,000. Dozens of smaller purchases, gas stations, coffee shops, clothing stores, all in the past week. None of them were mine. I felt like I was going to throw up. My vision blurred as I tried to process what I was seeing. This wasn't a hack or a random thief. Deep down, I knew who it was, but I didn't want to believe it. I called the credit card company, my voice trembling as I reported unauthorized charges. The representative was calm, asking routine questions. "When was your last legitimate purchase, Miss Elliott?" I told her. "Have you lost your physical card?" "No," I said, "it's right here in my wallet." Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "These charges were made with a physical card, not online transactions. Our records show an additional card on this account registered to a Diana Elliott. Would that be correct?" The emergency card. The one I'd added to my mom's phone digital wallet 2 years ago, for absolute emergencies only. I felt the room spin. "Can you tell me when these charges started?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "The first charge was last Thursday, from Bass Pro Shops in Springfield." Last Thursday. The day after I'd posted about my birthday trip on Instagram, sharing how I'd saved for it, how excited I was to treat myself. It wasn't a coincidence. I hung up after disputing every charge, my hands still shaking. I opened Instagram and went to my parents' profiles. I didn't want to believe it, but I had to know. There it was, plain as day. Mom had posted a photo of herself holding a new designer purse, the Nordstrom bag visible on the table behind her. Dad shared a picture outside Bass Pro Shops, grinning with a pile of high-end fishing gear, captioned, "Ready for the big catch." And the final nail in the coffin, a selfie of them both, smiling ear to ear, captioned, "Surprise vacation booked." Sometimes you just need to treat yourself. They'd treated themselves with my money. The money I'd saved for my first real birthday celebration. The money I'd worked years to earn. I felt physically ill. My chest tightened, and I had to put my head between my knees to keep from passing out. This wasn't just about the $25,000, though that was devastating enough. It was the betrayal. The cold, calculated way they'd done it. They'd seen my happiness, my excitement, my plans, and decided to steal it for themselves. They didn't just take my money, they took my trust, my hope, my belief that they could ever be the parents I needed. I tried calling them. No answer. I texted, "We need to talk. Now." No response. I called again, left voicemails, sent more texts. Nothing. They were avoiding me, probably hoping I wouldn't notice until after my birthday, when they could come up with some excuse. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that transaction list scrolling endlessly. $25,000. Money I'd earned, saved, protected. Money for my dream trip. Gone. I made tea at 3 a.m., trying to calm myself, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. By morning, my shock had hardened into something else, determination. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a one-time mistake. This was theft, pure and simple, by the people who were supposed to love me most. I took the day off work, something I almost never did. I couldn't focus on planning other people's celebrations when my own had been destroyed. Instead, I sat at my dining table with my laptop, methodically documenting everything. I took screenshots of every transaction, saved their social media posts flaunting their purchases, archived our text history showing they were ignoring me. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom, "Enjoying your special pre-birthday week? Can't wait to hear about your trip." The audacity took my breath away. They were pretending nothing had happened, acting like they hadn't just stolen $25,000 from me. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Words wouldn't come. Instead, I got in my car and drove the 2 hours to Springfield. This wasn't a conversation for texts or voicemails. I needed to see their faces, to hear them explain why they thought it was okay to steal from their own daughter. The drive gave me time to rehearse. I practiced keeping my voice steady, laying out the evidence calmly, asking direct questions without falling apart. I wanted to be rational, composed, everything they'd never taught me to be in conflict. I wanted them to see the woman I'd become, not the kid they could manipulate. Their house looked the same as always, a modest ranch style with peeling paint and an overgrown lawn. But there was a brand new truck in the driveway, gleaming under the sun. My stomach clenched. Another purchase on my dime. I parked, took a deep breath, and knocked instead of using my key. This wasn't a family visit, it was a confrontation with people who'd betrayed me. Mom answered, her face lighting up with a fake smile. "Mackenzie. What a surprise. We weren't expecting you until after your big birthday trip." She leaned in for a hug, but I stayed stiff, stepping back. "Is Dad home?" I asked, my voice flat. "In the living room." "Come in, want some coffee?" Her casual tone was surreal, like we were just catching up. I followed her inside, my heart pounding. Dad was in his recliner, watching a sports game on a television that looked suspiciously bigger and newer than the one I'd seen last time. "Hey, kiddo," he said, glancing up. "What brings you out here? Thought you'd be busy with birthday stuff." I am here about my birthday, I said, standing despite Mom's gesture toward the couch. Specifically, about how I discovered my credit card is maxed out with $25,000 in charges I didn't make. The room went silent. Mom's smile faltered, but she tried to hold it. Dad's expression hardened, his eyes narrowing. I pulled out my phone, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I spoke with the credit card company. All the charges were made on the emergency card I added to Mom's phone. For emergencies only. I scrolled through the screenshots, holding up the screen. Nordstrom, $3,246.78. Best Buy, $4,189.53. Bass Pro Shops, $2,875.22. Ticketmaster, $1,698.50. Marriott Hotels, $4,782.90. Apple Store, $3,899.99. And a down payment on that new truck outside, I'm guessing? Mom laughed nervously, a sound I knew too well. Oh, honey, I was going to tell you about that. It was a misunderstanding with the digital wallet. I thought I was using our card for the Nordstrom stuff, the concert tickets, the hotel. I didn't blink. And Dad accidentally used my card at Bass Pro Shops? For the truck? Dad shifted in his chair, his jaw tightening. Look, we were going to sort it out. It's not like we weren't going to tell you. When? I asked, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. After you'd spent more? After my birthday was ruined? After I couldn't pay for the trip I've been saving for? Mom's fake smile dropped. Don't be so dramatic, Mackenzie. It's just money. We needed a few things. $25,000 worth of things? I shot back. Things you needed more than I needed my savings? More than I needed to celebrate my birthday? Dad leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. We were thinking your trip sounds a bit excessive. All that money for a weekend? That's irresponsible. The audacity left me speechless for a moment. They'd stolen from me, and now they were lecturing me about financial responsibility? I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay steady. You stole $25,000 from your own daughter. You committed credit card fraud. Dad's face flushed red. Now you listen here, he snapped, standing up. We raised you. We put clothes on your back, food in your mouth for 18 years. If we needed to borrow some money, borrow? I interrupted, my voice cutting through his. You didn't ask. You didn't borrow. You stole. And this isn't the first time. I pulled up another screenshot, showing smaller charges from the past year, hundreds here, 1,000 there, that I'd assumed were mine because they were at local stores I frequented. These weren't me, were they? You've been stealing smaller amounts for months, hoping I wouldn't notice. Their silence was deafening. Mom's eyes darted to Dad, but neither said a word. I felt sick all over again, the weight of their betrayal sinking deeper. Why? I asked, my voice breaking for the first time. I've helped you when you asked. I've given you money, paid your bills, co-signed your loans. Why would you steal from me? Dad's face was crimson now, his voice booming. The family needed it more. Your mother and I have been struggling while you're off planning fancy parties and taking luxury trips. What kind of daughter flaunts her money while her parents can barely make ends meet? I stared at him, stunned. I earned that money, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Every dollar. I worked for it. I saved it. It's mine. Mom laughed then, a cold, dismissive sound I'd heard my whole life, usually when I tried to stand up for myself. You can celebrate alone, she said, waving her hand, her new manicure catching the light. We had better plans. That trip was selfish anyway. Family comes first, Mackenzie. We raised you better than that. In that moment, something shifted inside me. I saw them clearly, not as the flawed parents I'd spent years making excuses for, but as people who genuinely believed they were entitled to everything I had. People who saw my success not as something to celebrate, but as a resource to exploit. People who would never change. A strange calm washed over me, like a storm finally breaking into clear skies. I straightened my shoulders and looked them both in the eye. "Then don't ever call me again," I said, my voice quiet but firm. They stared at me, stunned. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. "Don't be ridiculous," she finally said. "You're overreacting. It's just money. We're family." "Not anymore," I replied, turning toward the door. "I've disputed the charges as fraud. The credit card company has opened an investigation. They have the evidence, including your social media posts showing off your purchases." Dad stepped toward me, his face suddenly anxious. "Now wait a minute, Mackenzie. Let's not be hasty. We can work something out." "There's nothing to work out," I said, my hand on the doorknob. "You stole from me. You betrayed me. And you're not even sorry." "Of course we're sorry you're upset," Mom said quickly, her voice syrupy. "We should have talked to you first." I turned back, meeting her eyes. "You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught." I walked out, ignoring their calls behind me. "Mackenzie, come back!" Mom shouted. "You're being irrational." Dad's voice followed, "This isn't over." But it was. For me, it was over. In my car, my hands shook on the steering wheel, but I felt something unexpected: relief. The constant anxiety of waiting for their next crisis, their next demand, their next manipulation, it was gone. I was free. The drive back to Boston was quiet, just me and my thoughts. I realized this wasn't just about the $25,000. It was about a lifetime of financial abuse disguised as family dynamics. The stolen babysitting money, the canceled birthdays, the guilt trips whenever I dared to want something for myself, it all added up. I'd spent years trying to fix them, to help them, to earn their approval. But they didn't want my help. They wanted my life. Back in my apartment that evening, I turned off my phone and poured a glass of wine. I sat at my dining table, surrounded by financial documents I'd pulled from my files. The reality was sinking in. This wasn't just about the credit card fraud. There were deeper entanglements I'd allowed to persist, thinking I could help my parents find stability. I'd co-signed their mortgage refinance when they fell behind on payments. I'd co-signed Dad's truck loan when his credit was too bad to qualify. I'd set up automatic payments from my account for their cell phone bill, internet, and streaming subscriptions. I'd kept a joint bank account open from when I was a teenager, never thinking to close it. All of it was meant to give them a lifeline, to show them I cared. Instead, they'd taken it as permission to keep taking. I thought about what Dr. Abrams had said in our last session: sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is stop protecting people from the consequences of their actions. I hadn't been ready to hear it then. I'd clung to the belief that I could fix my parents' financial chaos if I just found the right balance of help and boundaries. Now I saw how wrong I'd been. They didn't want to change. They wanted me to keep bailing them out, to keep sacrificing my own stability for theirs. I pulled out a notebook and started making a plan, not from emotion, but from clarity. I listed every financial tie between us: 1. Mortgage cosigner. 2. Truck loan cosigner. 3. Cell phone plan. 4. Internet bill. 5. Streaming services. 6. Emergency credit card access. 7. Joint bank account. Then I listed what I needed to do. 1. Follow up with the credit card company on the fraud investigation. 2. Consult an attorney about the mortgage and truck loan. 3. Cancel all automatic payments. 4. Close the joint account. 5. Change all passwords and security questions. 6. Set up credit monitoring. 7. File a police report for the credit card theft. That last item made my hand tremble as I wrote it. Filing a police report against my own parents felt like crossing a line I could never uncross. But Dr. Abrams' voice echoed in my head, "Your normal meter was calibrated in an abnormal environment." What felt extreme to me was actually self-protection against a serious crime. I checked the time, nearly midnight. Most of these steps would have to wait until morning, but I could start now. I opened my laptop and began changing passwords on every account, bank, email, social media, subscriptions. I removed payment information from any site where it was stored. I canceled the automatic payments for their bills, one by one. With each click, I felt a mix of guilt and liberation. The guilt was old, familiar, the voice saying I was selfish, that family helps family, that I should forgive. But the liberation was new, powerful. I was finally choosing myself. By 2 a.m., I'd done all I could for the night. I checked my phone one last time. 17 missed calls, 32 texts from my parents. I scrolled through them. "You're overreacting. We need to talk like adults. After everything we've done for you? You'll regret this when you calm down. Family doesn't abandon family. Not a single apology. Not a hint of remorse. Just anger, guilt trips, and minimization." I turned off my phone and went to bed, more certain than ever that I was on the right path. The next morning, my 32nd birthday, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't about revenge. I didn't want to hurt my parents or make them suffer. I just wanted to protect myself and hold them accountable for their actions. If they faced hardship, it would be the result of their choices, not my intention. I started my day with a call to my bank, scheduling an appointment with their fraud department. The representative was kind but professional. "Unfortunately, we see family financial exploitation more often than you'd think," she said. "We'll freeze the joint account immediately, but you'll need to come in to sign paperwork." Next, I called the credit card company for an update. They confirmed the charges were reversed temporarily while they investigated. "You won't be responsible for the fraudulent charges once we conclude," the rep assured me. I felt a weight lift. My birthday trip wasn't completely ruined financially, though the emotional damage was raw. Then I called an attorney, Linda Perkins, who specialized in financial law. A client had recommended her after going through a similar situation with an ex-spouse. I explained everything, my voice shaking as I recounted the theft. Linda was direct but empathetic. "You need to address the mortgage and truck loan immediately," she said. "As a co-signer, you're legally responsible if they default, which seems likely given their behavior." She outlined my options. For the mortgage, I could petition to be removed as a co-signer, but it would require my parents' cooperation or a court order. Neither seemed likely. For the truck loan, I could notify the lender of the fraud, creating a paper trail for future legal action. We scheduled a consultation for the next day, and I hung up, overwhelmed but determined. This was a marathon, not a sprint. My final stop was the police station. I'd been dreading this moment, but I couldn't avoid it. The officer who took my report was matter-of-fact, which helped me stay composed. "Credit card fraud is a serious offense," he said. "The fact that it's family doesn't change that." When he asked if I wanted to press charges, I hesitated, then nodded. "They need consequences," I said, my voice steady. "For once in their lives." By mid-afternoon, I'd notified the 3 major credit bureaus, placing fraud alerts on my accounts. I'd canceled every automatic payment for my parents' bills. I'd changed all my passwords, security questions, and contact info. As I drove home, my phone rang through my car's Bluetooth. It was the mortgage company, returning my earlier call. "Miss Elliott," the officer said, "removing yourself as a co-signer requires refinancing, which would be difficult given the other borrower's credit history." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I understand. But I need you to know I won't be making payments on this mortgage anymore. My parents committed fraud against me, and I've filed a police report. I'm severing all financial ties." His tone softened. "I'm sorry you're going through this. If payments are missed, it will affect your credit." I know, I said. I've consulted an attorney. I'll accept that if I have to. When I got home, I found 3 voicemails from Dad. I braced myself and listened. The first was angry. Mackenzie, the bank called. What the hell are you doing? They said you're disputing the mortgage payments. You can't do that. You signed those papers. The second was shorter, more demanding. The truck payment didn't go through. Fix this now. The third, left just minutes before, was different, panic creeping in. The credit card company called about fraud charges. You need to explain this was a misunderstanding. Mackenzie, this is serious. Call me back. I deleted them all without replying. Let them feel the panic I'd felt when I saw that $25,000 balance. Let them face the consequences of their actions. Mom texted next, your father is very upset. I don't know what you've done, but you need to fix it. This isn't how we raised you to treat family. I almost laughed at the absurdity. This wasn't how they raised me? They'd raised me to believe I was responsible for their financial survival, to accept their exploitation as love, to feel guilty for having boundaries. But I wasn't that person anymore. I blocked both their numbers, my hand steady now. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to my extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people I rarely spoke to but who'd likely hear from my parents soon. I knew they'd spin a story painting themselves as victims and me as the villain. I wanted the truth out first. Dear family, I wrote, I need to share something before you hear a distorted version. My parents committed credit card fraud against me, stealing $25,000. I filed a police report and am severing all financial ties with them. This isn't about one incident, it's about years of financial exploitation. I'm taking these steps to protect myself. You may hear their side, and you're free to form your own opinions, but these are the facts. I hope you'll respect my decision. I hesitated before hitting send, knowing it would burn bridges. But I also knew silence would let their lies spread unchecked. I clicked send and closed the laptop. The sun was setting outside my window. Tomorrow was my birthday, not the celebration I'd planned, but something bigger. The first day of a new chapter, one where I valued myself enough to enforce consequences, even when it hurt. That night, I changed my social media to private and ordered takeout from my favorite restaurant. As I ate alone in my quiet apartment, I felt lighter than I had in years. The chains of obligation, guilt, and fear that had tied me to my parents' chaos were breaking. This wasn't the revenge fantasy some might imagine. I didn't want to destroy their lives. I just wanted to stop being their safety net, to stop sacrificing my well-being for people who saw me as a resource, not a daughter. The morning of my 32nd birthday was bright and clear. I woke to texts and calls from friends, real friends who celebrated me without expecting anything in return. I lay in bed for a moment, letting the contrast sink in, the warmth of these messages versus the cold manipulation I'd grown up with. I'd cancelled the Nantucket trip. It didn't feel right to celebrate amid this upheaval. But my friends had other plans. Jessica, my best friend since college, showed up at 10 a.m. with coffee and pastries. Happy birthday, she said, pulling me into a hug. I know things are crazy, but you're not spending today alone. She wasn't the only one. Throughout the day, friends stopped by with small gifts, homemade food, and their presents. By evening, my apartment was filled with laughter and love, an impromptu birthday gathering organized by people who truly cared. Jessica raised her glass for a toast. To Mackenzie, she said, who taught us all what real strength looks like. I smiled, my eyes misty, feeling seen in a way I never had growing up. My phone kept buzzing with notifications. I'd unblocked my parents' numbers that morning, curious to see their response as the reality of my actions hit them. The messages were predictable, you've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. Dad, 8:17 a.m. The bank's threatening foreclosure. This is your fault. Dad, 9:45 a.m. I can't believe you do this to your own parents. Mom, 10:23 a.m. We're worried about you. This isn't like you. Mom, 11:56 a.m. Then, the one that made me pause, your father had to go to the ER with chest pains. Are you trying to kill him? Mom, 2:34 p.m. That last message hit hard. My old conditioning kicked in. Was Dad really in the hospital? Was I responsible? Jessica saw my face change and took the phone. She read the message, then looked at me. Classic manipulation, she said. No hospital name, no diagnosis, no ask for you to visit, just the accusation that you caused it. She was right. This was a tactic they'd used before, fake health scares to pull me back into their cycle of guilt and obligation. I put the phone away and rejoined my friends, but the emotional whiplash lingered. As the evening wound down, family members started replying to my email. My Aunt Patricia wrote, I always knew Diana and Frank were irresponsible, but theft? I'm so sorry, Mackenzie. Uncle Robert said, you should be ashamed, turning against your parents. Family problems stay private. Cousin Michael added, they called asking for money yesterday. Now I get why. Stay strong. It was exactly as I'd expected, some support, some judgment, and proof my parents were already seeking new victims. Sending that email had been the right call, even if it meant losing some family ties. The next morning, I met with Linda, my attorney. She helped me file formal documentation with the bank, credit card company, and lenders, notifying them of the fraud. She also drafted a cease and desist letter to my parents, legally ordering them to stop contacting me. It won't guarantee they'll stop, she said, but it's a paper trail if we need a restraining order. When I voiced my worry about the mortgage, she was honest. Your credit will take a hit if they default, she said. But we can work with the bureaus to add explanatory statements to your report. This is temporary. You can rebuild your credit. You can't rebuild your life if you stay entangled with people who exploit you. The credit card company wrapped up their investigation in a week, confirming the charges as fraudulent and removing them permanently. They provided documentation for the police, whose investigation was moving slowly but steadily. My parents received a formal notice about the fraud charges. Their response? A flood of voicemails, alternating between threats and tears. You can't testify against your own parents. No judge will side with you. We gave you everything. Drop this, and we can be a family again. Not once did they acknowledge their theft or show genuine remorse. It was always about them, their needs, their feelings, their convenience. Then came the flying monkeys, family and friends who felt compelled to fix things. My mom's church friend, Mrs. Landry, called to say, your parents made a mistake, but they love you. You need to forgive them. That's what family does. Dad's cousin Greg emailed, they're not perfect, but who is? Don't throw away your family over money. I was ready for this, thanks to Dr. Abrams. I responded calmly, I appreciate your concern, but this is between my parents and me. It's not one mistake, it's a pattern of abuse. I'm protecting myself. Some backed off, others kept pushing until I had to distance them too. Each conversation made me stronger, more confident in my decision. 3 weeks after my birthday, Detective Wilson called with an update. We've completed our investigation, he said. We're formally charging your parents with credit card fraud and identity theft. The evidence is solid, but first-time offenders often get probation, especially at their age. I told him I understood. This isn't about punishment, I said. It's about accountability. He paused, then said, you're doing the right thing. Not everyone has the strength to stand up like this. That evening, I received a handwritten letter from Mom. I almost threw it away but opened it out of curiosity. Dearest Mackenzie, it began, her handwriting shaky. We've been informed of the charges. I don't understand how you could do this to the people who gave you life. Your father barely sleeps. Our neighbors look at us differently. Is this what you wanted, to destroy our lives over a misunderstanding? We only borrowed the money. We'd have paid it back. That's what family does, they help each other without keeping score. I pray you'll come to your senses before it's too late. 3 pages, not one apology. Just blame, guilt, and the word borrowed as if stealing $25,000 was a favor. I folded it and added it to my folder of evidence, a reminder of why I'd walked away. As weeks turned to months, I rebuilt my routine. I refocused on my business, which had taken a hit during the crisis. I kept seeing Dr. Abrams, processing the grief of losing parents who were still alive. I accepted that my credit score would take time to recover but worked diligently to strengthen my financial profile. I also started redefining what family meant to me. Blood didn't guarantee love or respect, my chosen family did. Friends like Jessica, who showed up on my worst days. Colleagues who celebrated my wins without envy. Clients who valued my work. They were my family now. 6 months after my birthday, Detective Wilson called again. Your parents accepted a plea deal, he said. 2 years probation, restitution, financial counseling, and a no-contact order for the duration of their probation. I thanked him, surprised by my calm. I felt neither vindication nor sadness, just acceptance. Justice, however imperfect, had been served. My parents completed their counseling with resentment, according to probation updates. Their restitution payments came with bitter notes, payment for your loyalty, hope this buys your forgiveness, until I had them sent to my attorney instead. My extended family mostly faded after the initial reactions. A few kept in touch, supporting my boundaries. Others sided with my parents, preaching forgiveness and family loyalty. I responded politely but firmly, forgiveness was my journey, not an obligation to reconnect. My credit score took the hit Linda predicted when my parents defaulted on the mortgage, but I worked with the bureaus to add explanatory notes. I rebuilt my savings, accepting that recovery would take time. Professionally, I turned my pain into purpose. After sharing my story at a women's business luncheon, I was approached to develop financial empowerment workshops for young adults. I taught about setting boundaries, recognizing financial abuse, and building independence. What started as a side project became a core part of my business, helping others avoid the traps I'd fallen into. A year after that fateful birthday, I stood on the deck of a rented beach house in Nantucket, the ocean stretching before me in the early morning light. I'd finally taken the trip I'd planned, not as a rushed weekend, but a full week with my chosen family. Jessica joined me on the deck, handing me a mug of coffee. "Happy birthday, Mac," she said. "You earned this." I smiled, the warmth of the mug grounding me. "Thanks," I said. "It feels good to be here." The past year had been a journey of loss, healing, and growth. My parents faced their consequences, but their resentment showed they hadn't changed. My credit was recovering, my business was thriving, and I was stronger than ever. That weekend in Nantucket was everything I'd dreamed of: laughter, connection, joy, free from drama or guilt. On the final evening, we gathered for dinner on the deck, the sunset painting the sky in oranges and pinks. Marcus raised his glass. "To Mackenzie," he said, "who taught us that the greatest act of self-love is saying no to those who claim to love you but show it only in words." Jessica added, "To boundaries, and the courage to enforce them." I raised my glass, my voice steady. "To chosen family, and to freedom." Later that night, alone on the deck, I opened my journal. "Today, I turned 33, I wrote. A year ago, I thought my life was falling apart when I discovered my parents stole $25,000 from me. Now I see it was falling into place. That theft was the final push I needed to break free from a lifetime of financial and emotional exploitation. I've learned that family isn't blood, it's respect, support, care. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I can let go of my anger without letting the same people hurt me again. I've learned that my worth isn't tied to what I give others, but to the standards I set for how I'm treated. This journey hasn't been easy. There are still days when I doubt myself, when the old guilt tries to pull me back. But those days are fewer now, drowned out by the peace of living with clear boundaries. My parents may never understand the consequences of their actions. They may believe they were entitled to take what was mine. That's their story, not mine. My story is about building a life of mutual respect, creating celebrations free from manipulation, choosing connections that lift me up. Today, surrounded by my chosen family, I'm not just a year older, I'm wiser, stronger, free. And for that, I have my parents to thank. Their betrayal was the catalyst for my liberation. In trying to take what was mine, they gave me the greatest gift, permission to let them go. I closed the journal, the stars bright above the ocean. My story wasn't a tragedy, it was a reclamation. Not an ending, but a beginning. I wasn't a victim, I was a survivor, an author of my own life. Have you ever had to make a tough call to protect yourself from loved ones who crossed your boundaries? What helped you find the strength to stand firm? Share your stories in the comments, your experiences help others feel less alone. If this resonated, hit that like button, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to hear it's okay to prioritize their well-being, even with family. You deserve respect, honesty, and love without conditions. Never forget that.